Let me mess with some settings. Okay. I'm getting a little green bar. So is there audio on the YouTube stream now? I should maybe keep talking or people aren't going to be able to tell. All right. So again, like these are just pretty casual sessions. I wanted to, let's see, where did I go? Wait, challenge help. Nope. Reviews. Yep, there we go. Okay. I wanted to look at this code that a user submitted on Discord. And hang on a second. I know people complained last time when I did light theme. Oh, it was right there. Switch to dark theme here. Okay, the audio, it's like, it is like maxed out, but I wonder if there's like some sort of like gain setting or something like, well, I could just tweak the microphone. Maybe that'll help too. So maybe that's a little better. I can tweak the settings, but I don't want to spend all. Next time I do this, maybe I can jump in with a mic check that before we get started. So hopefully the audio is good enough for practical purposes. All right. Yeah. So a person submitted this code and they said, "Hey, this is like way longer than your solution online," which is probably true. If I could, let's see, solutions, 5th edition, and what challenge is this? This is this one. Like, so here's my version. And then their version ended up being 74 lines of code. This is a really, so for anybody who's in this boat who they're like, I looked at the solution online and mine is just so much longer. So I think mine had, let's see. Well, I can copy and paste it here really quick. 15 lines of code, including blank lines, which I have 1, 2, 3, 4 blank lines. So, like a lot of people, this is a reaction a lot of people have. Is like, man, my version is just so much longer. Like, what's going on here? And there's a bunch of things. One of them is my personal style is pretty dense. Two is that like some of it's just like getting more like the more comfortable you are with the language, and the constructs of the language, the easier it is to like think through. Like, well, I can combine this and I can combine that with this thing, other thing, and I can like achieve what I'm trying to pull off here in fewer lines of code. So like there's that part too, that like as you get better, you'll have better tools in your like mental toolbox to use. So that's definitely a part of it. Um and and then there's like one thing that I tend to feel like everybody does is they will add additional features, usually more output or like a little better like input handling, like bad input handling that mine doesn't do. And like that's more functionality requires there to be more code, right? So like I don't know. Like I definitely if you look at your at a solution, you're like, wow, that is like 10% of the lines of code that mine has, I wouldn't worry about it. Like if what you should do in that case is look at the solution that I have or that somebody else has and just say, is there something in here that I'm seeing it. It's less code. I like there being less code to maintain, less code to like understand and think about. If there's something about it that you like, then just remember that for the next challenge that you do, and your code will like gradually get more like what you wish it were. Um, but like I can go look at my own code, and I dare do this? I have this project over here that I've been working on, and I'm looking through it. Like I've literally written all this code in the last week, and there's so much in here that I'm like, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this other thing. Like this is like normal. This is how you make software. And the main thing is when you're looking at code, you're like, I don't like this and I don't like that. It shouldn't like not 100% of your time should be on adding new features. You should be spending a pretty reasonable amount of time tweaking the code to so that you're happy with it because I would argue that at least half of the value of your software is your ability to like look at it and understand it so that you can change it, because the numbers that I use, I'm going to use them again here even though I have no data to back me up other than intuition. I think 90% of your time you spend reading code, not writing code, so just trying to understand what it does. And then of the 10% that's left, like 90% of that, so 9 total percentage points, is modifying existing code. You spend like 1% of your time writing brand new code, as they say, green fields, no strings attached, just writing code. Like that's a rarity. So you should spend some of your time changing existing or like making sure that your code is something that you can leave and come back to and still understand, that other programmers can like make sense of it as well. And that's something that I said I've spent a week on this and I'm already feeling like, I don't like this. Like, for example, it's representable as string. I think I want to get rid of that. So anyway, like that's very normal. No matter how much experience you have with software development, you're going to keep looking at your code and saying, I'd like to change this. So plan for that. It's normal. All right. So, but I did promise that I would kind of look through this and just kind of work through it and just do some refactoring and see like what I might do different. And so I looked through this code, but I don't like have a specific plan here in mind of what I might do with it. But so just kind of looking through it. So first of all, this solves the problem, right? The whole point of this challenge is use an enumeration. This is a perfect enumeration. There's nothing, I got no complaints about this. These are the 3 states that are in there. It's either open, closed but locked, closed but unlocked. That's this one, or locked. And it looks good. And then you're supposed to be able to take user input and transition between those. But like it's kind of, you have like, it's like this. There's open, and you can transition back and forth between that and the unlocked state, so closed but not locked, and the locked state. And like but you can't go from open straight to locked, and you definitely can't go straight from locked to open. So you have to like type unlock and then you type open if you want it. So if you want to get from here to here, that's what you would do. I've done this kind of thing enough that one thing I might do here is like for my states, and I'm trying like the transitions are oftentimes like verbs. So like if I'm going to do something here, like going this way, I would maybe use the word open. It's a verb. So like the actual like thing that like causes me to transition, I'd refer to as the verb form open. And if I'm going the other way, I would call that close, or something like that. And oops, I'm trying to, okay. So like I might call that close. I don't have, okay. And then like this over here, I might like use the verb like unlock, and then going this other direction, I might call this lock. So like those are the like the transitions I might use verbs, and the states I might use, I don't even know what this is called, but the point is like unlocked and locked make sense. I'm going to just rename this to opened for consistency. It really doesn't change anything. Um, but it just helps me differentiate, because I know this is a thing that a lot of people have an issue with on this specific challenge, is mentally thinking about like the states: opened, closed, unlocked, closed but not locked, and locked, versus the actual like commands that you're doing. Like, it can get a little confusing, and kind of shifting myself into that paradigm of like, the states are like, I don't even know what these, I don't know what from an English perspective there's a word for that, but these are like states, and it's like the thing is opened, it's unlocked, it's locked, like it's whatever it is, it would fit into that, a sentence like that. The chest is opened, versus the commands, which are like, what do you want to do? I want to open this. I want to lock this. I want to unlock this. I want to close this. And so, anyway, separating the terminology there just a little bit can help. But like I said, the enumeration looks great to me. This is fine. But I'm just going to start here. So capital string and lowercase string are in C# land identical. There's zero difference between them. So I'll prefer the keyword version versus the formal version. That's true with int and like int32. It's true with like bool and boolean. Like, they are 100% identical, which is different than some languages. Like Java has those things, and like their equivalent of like integer versus int are different. In C# land, those are identical, so I'll prefer that. This, I don't have any problems with this. I do, like, I'm going to just tweak the white space here to kind of, help me understand a little better. Like, there's an outer while loop, and then there's this do while loop, and then there's this do while loop. And like, I'm moving these down. Dang it, I keep doing that wrong. There, I'm changing my white space because my brain wants to, with the way they were, my brain wants to like lump this while with this do, which isn't true. Like, this loop here ends right here with this while and the semicolon, and this, and then a completely independent do starts here. So the next thing I'll do here is like, I'll like remove the curly braces. This isn't that big of a deal. Like I said, this is a personal preference. Okay, I'll come back to that in a second. That was a little more complicated because it's got those continues in there. So I'm going to remove the curly braces again. Not that it changes much. And if you prefer the curly braces, don't let anybody convince you not to put them in there. It is definitely like personal preference, right? Like, I just, for my sake, I feel like this form, notice how I'm using the white space here to align these, is easier to understand, because it's like I can see more of the code all at once, and I don't have to keep scrolling up and down to pull it off, or to like make sense of it all. I'm going to come back to those continues in a second. I'm hitting Control L, which just, I think it copies the line, but it deletes the line for sure. I don't need to copy it, but anyway, to remove those lines, I'm just hitting Control L. And then again, personal preference, not everybody likes this way. I tend to put that while on the next line. All right, so these continues. So I'm going to delete them. But that's because if you get to here, what this says is continue on to the next iteration of the loop, which will come in and check the condition. So these continues are really just saying, like, come down here and check the condition, and then presumably start the loop over again. Which, if you look at the way these are, like, these are mutually exclusive. Like, it's either open, like you can't end up in multiple of these categories for two reasons. One of them is the thing you were checking on. They are different streams, so you can't get into all of them. But even if they were somehow the same, they overlap somehow. Like, maybe this is like dot starts with, O, or, whatever it is. Even if there is room for some overlap, it's irrelevant, because they're if, else if, else if, else if. So that's protecting you from getting into multiple. So as soon as I get to the end of this, I know I'm going to end up past the end of this else. If I had other statements down here, then the normal flow would cause me to run those statements, whereas a continue jumps back to like the loop control instead. But in this case, there's nothing there. So these continues aren't actually getting us anything. I wonder if the intent was to continue with the next iteration here, which could make sense. Like that, I could see there being a desire to do that. But this continue and break only get out of the innermost, like they always deal with the innermost loop. And if you need to do something else, then you have to restructure your code. There, like in Java, there's a way to like label your loop, and then you can like break, and then like name a label. And so like if you have triple nested loops, you can like break out of not just the innermost loop, but 3 of them if you want. And in C#, like if you're using methods, which we're not that far along in the book yet, okay, the person who wrote this just confirmed that was the intent, is the continues. Anyway, if you're using methods, which we haven't talked about yet, then like you can use, like if you structure it right, you can use a return to like escape all of the loops and get out of the method call. And so depending on how you structure a return could achieve that. But again, we don't have that tool yet. That's still coming. You could use a go to, but don't. Go to would allow you to like you could come in here and say go to top, but don't do that. Go tos are generally speaking more pain than they're worth. All right, so anyway, yeah, so these, in this specific case, like I said, there was a broader intent. We'll get back to that in a second. But in this case, like these continues aren't actually doing anything. So this is now functionally identical code. Let's clean up these curly braces, which again, keep them if you like them. But this is part of what I was saying about like my code style tends to be pretty dense. Now, here's what's interesting. I don't see a difference anymore between this and this and this. So we'll run through this thing, and then whenever we get done with that, so like the way, like this condition is basically, do you have good input? So until somebody enters something useful to do here, we'll just loop again here. Once we do enter something useful, we'll change our state. Very reasonable. And then we'll move on to this one. But this is the same thing. So at this point, since these are all the same, if we just do it once and just turn it into, while do this, then this is identical code. And now we're essentially down to like where my solution was. It's just this like extra step. But I what I will say is, and again, I'm gonna take a stab in the dark here. That I think that the intent of each of those loops was about these different states here. It's like this is the first one was supposed to be the open state. The second one is supposed to be about the unlocked state. The third is about the locked state, and about like what should I do? Sorry. What what should I do in the open state? And like the allowed options may vary from thing to thing. And I think that that's what the person was doing. They just confirmed that too. So I've deleted this code in the name of it doesn't do anything different. So let's just let it go on. Except that I am leaving something on the table, some of the thinking of what got us there, just because we have failed to account for some of this stuff. So I think like anyway, and I think we want to account for that. And by the way, the one thing I'll say, like I'm not going to do this right now. I do want to move on to the second thing that I want to do, which is more Minecraft stuff and talking about some object-oriented programming things. I given that this is now a loop inside of a loop, I'm like, we could combine those. I'm not going to worry about that right now. We're good right now. But what I do want to do here is it's just this one last piece, which is that somehow we do want to account for the fact that in different states, and this is what the person, like the fact that we had those loops, like it was justified, and those continues, all of that together was making this attempt a very smart, valiant effort to account for the fact that when you're in the lock state, you can't just type in open and poof, now you're in the open state. Same going the other way around. If you're in the open state, you can't just poof move all the way over. So what, given where the code is sitting at now, the only thing I'd probably do here is I would say, so that is basically we just need to handle those two cases. So if you type in open, then switch to the open state. What I'll do here is I'll say if the current state, so if chest state does not equal chest state dot locked and the command is open, then do that, which is to say, so basically we've added in an extra check here, which now has messed up all my white space, which is fine. But and maybe I'll flip that around because it shouldn't really matter here, but that allows me to, like, it allows the code that's over here, these command equals, to like be a little more symmetric. But in this case, so if you're saying open and we're not in the lock state, then become this state. There's three states that we could be in. If we're in the open state already and we say open, it doesn't do us any harm to like update chest state with the same state that's already in. If we're in the unlocked state and we try and open it, then it should correctly transition to opened. So the only thing we need to like check for here is just that if we're not in that locked state, and this, we would do the same thing here with, I think it's this one, right? Let's see. Yeah, if we're, so, and chest state does not equal chest state dot opened. And I think that does what we're looking for. Without like massive change. And like I said, this still isn't what mine looks like, which I think again is the point here. There's not one way to do this. There's lots of ways to do it. And again, the intent of this challenge is to get some experience defining an enumeration. This is the first time that we're like, wait. All of a sudden, the thing I said before about we haven't done methods yet. That's wrong. Methods, this is, for some reason I was thinking we're like halfway through part 1 here. This is in part 2. This is defining types. Okay, my bad. Sorry about that. I misspoke. So we could use methods here. I don't know that this needs it. But like, for example, like we could maybe take this logic and do something like with that. We could extract that into a method and this is the opposite of that. This is what I should to keep that intact. There, flip the logic around. Anyway, so the point of this challenge is really comes down to using enumerations. You know, being like defining your first custom type. And enumerations are like every other type that we could make, structs, classes, interfaces, like they're all more complicated than enumerations. Enumerations are very simple, with the caveat that like defining a new type, like it's kind of mind bending. Like we get used to int and string and bool and like we're used to like these types, but now all of a sudden we're like, I'm going to invent a completely new type that didn't exist before. That's a part of my program. I can use it just like any other type, just like it. Like I can have a variable that does that. And what I'd say is, well, I definitely don't want For my part, I will, I don't know why I put it there, but for my part, I will put, when I'm doing it this way, I'll put my methods down here. I don't, anyway, that's beside the point. Uh, so that's the main thing here is making a type and using a type, and this has definitely achieved all of that. So I like, even though like I did a little bit of tweaking here to like get this in here, which there was definitely an attempt made um to do this. It was a good attempt. I don't think it was working quite like expected, because the continue it applies only to that inner loop, not the outer loop. But anyway, the point being, this has achieved what the intent of the challenge was, which is being able to make and use your own new types and to get a little familiarity with the enumerations. I'll also say, like, kind of a secondary point of the challenge was to kind of use the state, like use state machines. And like, I didn't call it that in the book. I didn't, but state machines are an interesting and useful concept. They're one of those things that if you're not familiar with it, someday when you're looking for something to distract you with, look up state machines. They're a powerful concept in programming. They're very useful in programming. um, Maybe I'll throw this out there too. There's a pattern called the state pattern, and I feel like there's a book called Game Programming Patterns. Let me bring this over here. And this book is, I think, it's a really well done book. Like, I actually like his writing style felt similar to mine, different. Like, it's definitely different from mine. Um, the scope of this book is, this guy, he now works for Google, but he working building the Dart programming language, or at least last I heard. But he was a game developer for many years, and while he was still a game developer, he wrote this book. And you should buy the book. It's great, especially if you're doing game development. But like, this is about patterns, design patterns that he's found useful in game development. And what I'll say is, like, you can buy the book in print or ebook, um, or read now. Like, this book is completely free. Like, it's all just sitting here, uh, which is really nice. For like, I bought it because I thought it was such a well written book and it was useful to me. So I own a physical copy, but like, when I need to look something up, a lot of times I can come right here. Anyway, point being, he talks about the state pattern, and his take on this was a lot clearer to me than, for example, Uncle Bob, Robert Martin. He has a version in this book. It happens to be on my desk right now. It's called Agile Software Development: Patterns, Principles, and Practices. That's not what I'm going for. This book, like, he covers the state pattern in that as well. I suspect it's also in the Gang of, I think that's one of the Gang of Four 23 patterns. That, anyway, I his Robert Nystrom's take here is really well done. It's really easy to understand. Like, I mean, like, the state machine for like the locked chest is like simpler than this, but like, the concept is really useful. Game development, you can use it a ton. Outside of game development, it's still a useful thing. But his version on this is, it's all C++, but I think as a C# developer, you'd find this useful. Anyway, the way he does this is a really good take on it, so definitely would recommend that. All right, I'm gonna change topics here. But like I said, there's not that we couldn't do more. Like I say, I think we could do. There's probably a way to make this one loop instead of two. Um, I'm not like, I don't know. I made this method. I'm not convinced that it's really providing value. Maybe I don't want it, but anyway, I'm gonna stop messing with this, and I'm gonna jump over here to the next topic, which is, we were a couple of weeks ago, we were looking at this potion stuff. Let's see. I think I missed, since I started doing these again. I haven't done it every week, which isn't like, my intent isn't to necessarily turn this into a recurring thing. I will say that if I wanted to make this like a recurring thing, I think I'd do what I've seen some people do and do like seasons where I'd like commit to doing it for, I don't know, 12 weeks in a row or 16 weeks in a row or 8 weeks in a row or something like that and call that a season. And um and then take a break because it does, I mean, it's just one, it's another thing on my radar to do. What I've been doing is just if I have something interesting to tinker with, then I'll explore it. Anyway, let me bring this out. So the last, previously on casual programming, we were making this brewing stuff, right? And the idea here, again, this is basically the state machine thing again. Like it pretty much is. We start here, you know, glass bottle. You can add water, although in our stuff we always started with a water bottle. You, and then the action is like add nether wart, and then the new state is you're in this awkward potion, and then you add spider eye, and you have this poison potion, and then you can add this, and you get this, you know, this. Why do I want glowstone dust? Yeah, okay. You like you add this and you end up here, or you add this and you end up here. And so this is a state machine that kind of has like a flow to it. Once you get to one of these things, there's no going back, which is fine. A state machine doesn't require. It's kind of funny that there ends up being that overlap with state machines in both of these. Um. Anyway, what I want to do is kind of like build. So when you're playing Minecraft, you you have a there's got to be a picture of the UI here. Yeah, this thing right here. Open image in new tab. I kind of hate how much just noise there is around this. Sometimes it's easier to just do this. Um, so with a brewing stand, you can put potions here, and like when you could put what is this, blaze powder in here, and then you have a certain number of charges or uses. Like it's like 20 uses before you need to put more blaze powder in here. Meanwhile, you can put your ingredient here and it will add it. It takes a second, like it sits here and thinks for a second, and then it updates the potions. So I kind of want, like right now we have, if I come over here and run this, let's see if this works. Well, fantastic. There should be a new line there. How did I miss that? What do you want? Okay. It's because I do that, and then we should do console.writeLine. Okay, for next time. In this case, like you add these things, and then it transitions to the next thing, and then you can always. So if I say nether wart is the thing that turns it into an awkward potion, which is like the base for most of these. And now if I add in ghast here. Oh, I'm just now realizing I've had so many ghast tears, and I feel like there's not a lot of use. I'm thinking of actually playing Minecraft. That's how you get a regeneration potion. I've probably known that, but next I'm gonna. Those are nice potions. I have so many ghast tears, I don't know what to do with them. All right. Basic. So okay. So what I want to do is like work on, and I don't know that like I only want to do this for, let's say, the next 25 minutes. So I don't know that we're going to get done with this, but let's talk about object oriented programming, because I think that that's the, like it's not like we've been avoiding objects here, right? Like we've got a bunch of this stuff. Uh Although I'm just now realizing how much crap we put in here. I'm going to delete that. Hopefully that's not being used anywhere. Doesn't look like it. Are we? So ingredient, potion. Okay, so the both of those enumerations we're using. Um, I guess what I'd like to do here is just kind of think through like what should our objects look like if we wanted to like recreate the whole like exactly the brewing stand as it kind of works in the game. And I'm not suggesting this is the only way to do this or the best way to do this or the way Minecraft did it. Like I, this is just thinking out loud, right? Very low stakes stuff, but um the first thing that goes through my mind. So I could sit down and pull out a piece of paper or a whiteboard and like start diagramming like what could this look like? What objects might I have? For things that are pretty low stakes and easy to change my mind about, low risk, I don't usually do that. I don't, for example, the book talks about like CRC cards. I don't usually do that. I don't do CRC cards. I don't like usually what I do is I just tinker. I just say, okay, well, what could this be? Let's see. If I made a public class crafting or not crafting potion stand, like what might this look like? So um, this has some sort of like int. Let's make it public int uses remaining. And again, like it has, they don't call it uses, and I don't remember what it is called. So like lasts up to 20 separate times. I guess that's kind of what I'm looking for. Yeah, they're calling this fuel. Blaze powder as fuel reduced from 30 to 20 points. I mean, uses, let's call this fuel remaining. And um, I think like I'm again, so I'm kind of focused on like what does the I'm going to call it an API. That word API has multiple meanings. They're like a lot of times when people talk about an API, they're talking about like a network API, but objects can have an API, and an API is think of a user interface. The user interface, like a graphical user interface or command line user interface, is how you interact with how a user, a human, interacts with a program. An API is an application programming interface. It's basically the interface that the object in this case presents to other parts of the program. It's provided by one part of the program meant to be used by another part of the program. So that's what I want to focus on here is what should a potion stand present to the outside world. And so for example, public void add fuel. And I guess I want to um like I want to be able to add blaze powder, right? So and but blaze powder isn't a thing. What I do have is I have this ingredient, blaze powder. And so like I could do something like this. So fuel remaining plus equals what was it? It was 20, I think. Um so again, I do want to be able to keep track of this, but I don't want the outside world to just be like, add another million, fuel points. I don't want that. If you're gonna do it, you had to add this. But just kind of thinking out loud here, what I worry about with this, this actually has gotten big enough that it probably deserves to be moved into multiple files. But I'm gonna scoot this up here. In fact, some people get antsy as soon as there's like other classes in here. Like some people be like, move all this stuff into its own file already. I would have done it forever ago. That's fair. I don't think that's I think that's a valid critique. Anyway, what I don't want is, so I make a potion stand and then I don't I don't really want to do that just because like these are just simple values. Like I kind of want this to be an item. Like I want it to be a thing, another object, a data centric object that I can pass around. And the other thing about this is like what I have right now actually supports something like this ingredient dot turtle shell. Like I could put that in and like this would work just fine. So I actually don't want to do that. Here's what I'm going to do. And this actually gives me some flexibility. So if I come down here and I say public class item, and that's it. And then I have public class blaze powder is an item, and I do that. Now, in order to do something with the blaze, so now at this with just those two types defined, I can come back up to here and I can say I can make my potion stand require specifically blaze powder, and then right here I have to like get a hold of a new, you know, a new blaze powder like as an item. So at this point, like this has to come from somewhere. Now that doesn't like obviously you could always do what I just did and just like toss in a new blaze powder and that's it. I don't like it's still really easy to just acquire a new blaze powder, which I think is probably okay. But it is like I had to create an object which allows me to like move it around in the system, and I do like that part of this. The other thing is, hey, I'm seeing comments from YouTube. This is C#. The question was, what language are you using? So, I at least in this case, I can constrain it to specifically blaze powder, which is good. Like I don't like now nobody can just add new whatever the other stuff was. So I like that approach, but the other thing is if memory serves, which I might have this completely wrong, I think where's the full UI? I think if I'm remembering correctly, I think that if you have more than one, like you can pile up 20 of them here, and it keeps track of how much fuel you have, and then it like can pull in more items as needed. So what I kind of would like is something like this, where I could do something like private read only list of blaze powder. You know, so new, so I, oops, this should be underscore fuel. So what I can do here is I can not add to the fuel remaining, but I can say fuel dot add blaze powder. So I can just add it to my collection of that. And then when it's, and then basically like, if I have, this will default to 0. So when I go to like, do add an ingredient to something, it will, it can take something out of here and consume it, but then add like more fuel. So again, looking at that UI of like what it does, there's a spot for an ingredient. And so if I do something like this, where I say public void let's see. Set in, well, okay. So what I want is something like this. I want item ingredient. I want to be able to have this ingredient, but what I do want the ability to do is say public, oh, so that should be null, a bool. And I want to be able to do something like public void set ingredient, and I want to be able to set the ingredient in there, which so what I want to do is if ingredient is null, ingredient equals ingredient. So we'll use it. We'll use it if we don't already have something. Otherwise, maybe what I want to do is call this, just thinking out loud here, try set ingredient. And if ingredient is null, return false. If it's not null, so we can't set it if there's already something in there. And then otherwise we'll say otherwise we'll say return true, and we'll say ingredient equals ingredient. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to avoid, and I don't know if this is exactly how the game works. I could open it up, we could tinker with this, but it's not worth that trouble right now, given the limited time. But like, I wonder, like in this case, like I actually kind of want to say in Minecraft, like if I pick up, say, this nether wart and I drop it here, like what I don't want to do is stomp on the gunpowder that's already in there. I think in Minecraft, it might swap it. Like it might put the nether wart in here and then you pick up in your hand the gunpowder. So it might swap it, but it doesn't like just like blow it away. So that's the main thing I'm trying to avoid right now, is the blowing it away thing. So having this try set ingredient addresses that, but there should be a way to say it's a similar thing here. Like there may not be anything in there. So try take ingredient, and so this would say item to take equals ingredient equals null. So we wipe out what is there, but we stored it in that to take, and then we return to take. Does that work? So it allows us to try to take the ingredient. We signify that it could be null. We might just take it off of that, and I think that works. Like we could, if we wanted to, we could do something like this. It's like combines those, like try swap ingredients. So now the API has the ability to just set something, the ability to try and pull away the ingredient that's there, and then the ability to do that. So this, like, what we ought to be able to do is basically a method. So we have a method that just tries to drop an ingredient into the potion stand, a method that tries to pull it away, and a method that combines the two and tries to swap it. So again, like we're not even, we're just thinking through like what might you want to do with a potion stand object. And so the other stuff that needs to happen here is there's also down here the like the potions, and we want to account for that as well. So um again, I'm thinking out loud here. I wonder if where did item go? Potion, not that. I wonder if we want to do, so a potion is an item, just like how Blaze. Oh crap! Now I've got two kinds of potions. Uh, okay. Um, I could possibly just do that. So kind of turn the existing potion type that we made into this. I guess I'm not convinced that that's what I want to do. I don't think that's bad. I think it's okay. I think we're okay. Well, let's just roll with it and see. Um, where do my here's my potion stand? So, um, we do want the ability to like add potions, and I'm trying to think what the best way to do that is, because one thing we could do is right, like we could do this and just have three of these, which I think actually covers everything. But the things that I am thinking about is like, do I really want to do 1, 2, and 3, or should I use an array? And do I actually want? It's the same thing as I had up here. Do I want to like do? Is this really what I want to do? Do I want to? Do I want to be able to have stuff like this? Because I think whatever you do here on this on like these is the same thing that happens here and presumably here as well. And so just thinking this through, like this is a good starting point, but how do we want to like what are we happy with it? And I feel like I'm not happy with it yet because I think I want all this stuff. And the problem with this is, despite where we're at, like I don't love the idea of basically try set potion 1, try take potion 1, try swap potion 1, and then 2 and then 3. Like I don't want to like duplicate all that logic. So, I'm going to run out of time here in about 3 minutes. I'm going to see what we can do here and then maybe we'll continue this in a week. But like I guess what I'm thinking is what if I had an object that handled that? So like what if I had something that's called like a public class inventory slot, or maybe it's just like a slot um, that that had something along the lines of, I mean, basically this stuff. So I'm going to just kind of copy and paste that down there. But and then try set value. So instead of calling it try set ingredient, it'll be value. And we got to just rename a bunch of this stuff. And then the other thing that we're missing here is basically I need this. And so just doing some renaming here. And here's what I'm gonna do. Like this is basically it, but like I've generalized this. Now this is an item, which is actually something that I kind of was trying to avoid doing. Oh no, I was gonna say I was trying to avoid doing here. That's with the blaze powder. I think we're okay for now. I actually think I'd like to like combine this in with that as well. Like I think that's a reasonable thing if we could do it. But what I was gonna do is like I feel like not everything can be dropped on there. I mean, I don't know exactly how Minecraft handles this off the top of my head. I can go play with this and see. The way that this like there are some of these items. I mean, you can see a bunch of these, like the glistening melon and the magma cube. Like these things you can put in there, but not everything can be put in there. And certainly this stuff down here, it must be a potion to go down here. So I feel like one thing that I need is the ability to somehow limit what items can go in here. And I think the easiest way to do this is generics, which is kind of an advanced topic. But so if I do this and say where T is an item, so it must be at least an item. Now I can change these all out for the value's fine. Try T. Okay, like that. And now I should be able to get rid of all of these and upgrade this from an item to a slot of item. And actually at this point, I don't need that setter at all. Equals new. And here, now I can make this a slot of potion. Equals new. Don't, when in modern C# you don't, that took me a long time to get used to because it can infer the type here. And I think that's very clear cut in my mind. Anyway, you don't need to write the name twice. And with a complex name like slot of potion, that makes sense. All right. So at this point now, I because I moved that logic that I had written for ingredient into this slot class, it made it really easy to reuse it. So now a potion stand has a slot for any item, and then 3 slots for potions. And this is basically where I'm going to end. I don't think I'm going to make any more code changes right now, although I think it'll be interesting to see where this goes. Like now at this point, I can say ingredient dot try set value new. Like I can take an item that I have, maybe pull it out of my inventory and put it in there. And I can say potion stand dot potion 1 dot try swap value new potion. Right, so something like that. So now I have the logic for all of these, and I'm just going to leave me some comments here because it'll be a week or two before I come back to this. But the idea would be So do we want to leave these as potion 1, 2, and 3? Like, for example, if we used it, like we could have like an array or a list that's like locked into exactly 3 things. Minecraft is like there's no potion, like there's no such thing as a potion stand that has anything but 3. That's just how it works. So we can lock ourselves into 3, but from a design perspective, it might be easier to not like have 1, 2, 3. But maybe. And then this is this thing about the items. Like the only when I had tried to set an ingredient, I wanted to do new nether wart, but I can't do that because nether wart is part of that enumeration, but it's not an item. So what about that? Like we've got blaze powder. Good. Blaze powder here and here. So we should maybe do something about that. And then in terms of other stuff like um, it's like we need to make it so that we can like actually like produce new potions based on the old potions. So that's kind of taking the in this all of this stuff here, all of this. So like I said, I'm gonna stop here for now. I think there's more interesting stuff to do here. I definitely won't promise that I'll come back to this. And I definitely won't promise that I'll come back to this, you know, even if I do, it may not be next time. I think I'll just play it by ear, but I do think this is an interesting little microcosm of, you know, a little teeny program that still has interesting things to talk about and explore. So I'll stop streaming for now. I enjoy doing this. I think it's fun to just kind of explore. Uh, and I think, like I said, there's a lot of interesting things to like talk about as we go through this. I hope that these are helpful for people to like start to think about how all these millions of little programming tools can be used. Even something like this, like generics. If, by the way, if we did want to, like, there are other ways that we could like, we could lock ourselves to item, and then, and because I think that the where this is going eventually is, at some point, you do need the ability to like have other. It's not just about item types. Like sometimes it's about something else. Sometimes it's about like, I don't know. I'm not going to think of a good example off the top of my head, but like it isn't just about the item types. There could be other rules that we'd want to enforce here where when we say try swap value or try set value, that we might say the rules of this whatever thing that we're making prohibit you from putting one of these here. Uh, Again, I don't know what that is, but it may be more than just types. And so given that we might need like a rule-based system for deciding what can go into a slot, a type-based rule could just be one of those. And so maybe we don't need generics. But it felt like a pretty good fit to me. Anyway, yeah, like I said, I think this is an interesting place to explore. So I wouldn't be surprised if we revisit this again next week or in a couple of weeks or whatever. But yeah, I enjoy doing these. I think it's fun, and I appreciate you guys hanging out with me for a little bit. Hopefully, I'll be back in a week or two, and I'll see you guys around then. Thanks, everyone.